All right, we are back with the league that means nothing. The second edition of this tournament. I am Tommy Fresh on the mics along with Mo Bogsley. We're going to do some commentary on this matchup between Mark Mellenbacher and Sofia Romeo. Riptide versus Uzuri. Mo, how you feeling about this matchup?
Not very confident. I have never played Riptide in my life. I've never played Uzuri in my life. But if I know anything from playing new, I believe Riptide is favored into the Assassins. They have all those defense reactions. They have all those traps. It's very easy to cover up any sneaky stuff that Uzuri tries to set up. But cards like Codex will be Uzuri's best friend in this matchup.
You know, absolutely. But the cool thing is about the Assassin matchup here, because they both have access to Codex. And Codex, interestingly enough, Riptide has a lot of the ability with Trench over there to clear the arsenal if Riptide wants to grab something. Now, looking at Riptide's equipment here, we have New Horizons, so you have to assume a little fast, but we also see the Perch Grapplers, which blocks too. So typically I would expect, if I was seeing New Horizons, that I would see the Snapdragon Scalers, but I don't know what's going on here. We don't have lists in front of us, so it should be interesting. Players are shuffling up. Can you believe this, Mo Bogsley? Uzuri already winning 40-38.
Skill diff, right? Like, Uzuri came here to game and they're already winning this match. And what everybody said, whoever draws first blood wins at the end of the game. It doesn't matter how much life you have at the end of the game. It matters how much you start with. And 40 is greater than 38.
This is a true thing. Now, you say you have never played either of these heroes. Did you just skip Outsiders Draft?
Yeah, I think Outsiders Draft historically was the worst, if not one of the worst draft sets ever made.
Oh my God.
I know that is a very controversial take. I know a lot of people loved Outsiders, but it did nothing for me.
It was fun to force Riptide. I will tell you that.
Riptide gamers are going to rip, right? Riptide is going to start out here. Load Dreadbore. Dreadbore, very importantly, says defense reactions cannot be played from hand. This chain link. So whenever you see that Dreadbore, the whole chain link, you cannot use those defense reactions from hand.
Yeah, so it's a static ability, right? So all arrows are going to have this text, and it's easy to forget. Now we're seeing Murky Water come in here with a Premeditate plus the buff from Dreadbore. So it's coming in for 10. Now, interesting to note, no traps in graveyard for Sofia over here. So you're not really threatening anything here in terms of an on-hit except, well, 10 damage.
Yeah, but this matchup is normally a fatiguey matchup. Players will go very low on their deck. So Riptide trading 2 cards for Uzuri's 4 cards here is still something to note. Mm-hmm. And Riptide gets that arsenal. So it's just a very positive exchange from the Riptide player, even if they lose 2 powerful cards.
Yeah, interesting to see all the things going on here, because when I see Murky Water, I'm thinking grindy, and I'm trying to understand the New Horizons tech here. I want to see how it goes. And we're seeing one of my favorite things you can do in the Assassin matchup. Bullseye Bracer's blocking a dagger to buff it, and guess what? I bet a trap's coming.
See, that's why these Riptides are so sneaky. You think your weapons have relevant text. You think the extra damages are going to matter. You think that on-hit's going to matter. And instead, you get an Inertia token from Inertia Trap because she buffed the Nerf's Scalpel by 1. Insane play. And it deals the damage.
So good, so good. You know, Piercing doing, well, the negative effect here for Uzuri, which is a shame, but Inertia Trap, one of the better traps. Let's be honest, all the traps are pretty awesome when they trigger, but Inertia Trap is probably one of the more relevant ones.
And Inertia Trap is one of those that you can't really play around until it's too late. And getting an Inertia token just feels so miserable. Losing your hand, losing your arsenal, losing everything at the end of your turn. So you have to use it or you will lose it. So because of this, we see Uzuri throwing both her weapons out, trying to empty her hand and just leak any kind of damage she can.
Yeah, and Riptide says, well, I don't mind about that dagger, but here comes Command and Conquer, a very relevant card against defense reactions.
Yeah, Riptide doesn't even think. Riptide's like, yep, you got my arsenal. Take the 6 damage. I'm ready to roll. Let's go back to my turn. Let's get
Interesting
this show
enough.
on the road.
I would have trenched that trap rather than let it get destroyed because it is a relevant trap. It would have been good later in the game. And I mean, I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but if you're watching this video, know it's a little bit longer than of a game, so it might be relevant to see. Now we do see the Heat Seeker here, which is a reason.
Pitching a red as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like Sophia might have had the 4-card red hand. So Bullseye Bracer was the only way to save an arsenal. Otherwise, you have to pitch at the Dreadboard load.
Interesting. So they pop the bracers, throw the Heat Seeker in, pitch a red, and they're hoping it hits because if it hits, they get a card on top into the arsenal, and then they can set up a double arsenal with New Horizons. But Uzuri says, you know what? I don't want you to have that. I'm glad you're using
Uzuri
your
giving
equipment.
2 cards. Uzuri is one of the best heroes in the game to just play 2-card hands, right?
Mm-hmm.
Throw a 0-cost stealth, swap it out for big number. Play 0-cost stealth, swap it out for big number. And this is one of the best 0-cost stealth cards you can play. Persuasive Prognosis just came out in Mistveil, and on hit, it banishes the top card of your opponent's deck, and then you can take any card from their hand with the same color, and you gain a life for each action card banished this way.
The Riptide giving up the Perch Grapplers already. They're saying, you know what? I don't need this equipment. I'm going to get rid of it. You know, we're going to see how far we can take this.
If I didn't know better, I would think this would be a very quick game.
Sick'em shot. The 1-for-4 arrow with Go Again here with 1 floating. So still enough resources to use the Dreadbore. Riptide says, I'm going to press some damage here.
Yeah, 1-for-4 Go Again is just the kind of arrow you want to see in your arsenal, so you don't need to use your bow. You don't need to do anything funky to get it in there, and you can just start the turn with it.
Uzuri saying, we'll block a little bit here. Take some damage.
Another Heat Seeker.
We'd love to see it. And it's coming in for 6, notably because of the Dreadbore activation.
Commands 2 cards. Gets 2 cards. This Uzuri is blocking a lot and isn't stripping many cards from Sophia's hand. That does worry me a little bit for this late game, depending on how many cards each player presented. If we're worried about fatigue at all, is something to start thinking about this early on in the game.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you start to understand. Now we're going to see probably some cards get stripped from Sophia's hand, or at least arsenal here with the Death Touch coming in, because this is a pretty potent attack. Now, it's just hard, right? You have to navigate the fatigue plan pretty early when you realize, well, this is not going to be aggressive. Seeing a trap that does not trigger and a sink below, covering up that Death Touch.
Yeah, Riptide is so good about blocking damage, but also sending relevant on hits. So they're going to constantly be trying to strip your hand while blocking, while dealing damage off Riptide's hero ability. And was that a yellow off Rabble? Unlucky.
You hate to see it. Now, listen, Mo Bogsley, it could always be worse. It could be a blue.
It could always be a blue. That is so true.
And loading with the trigger from Riptide here. Interesting enough, the Uzuri says, I don't even want the Ravenous Rabble to hit. You know, in situations like this, I look at vanilla damage, and this is what we call damage that does not have an on hit. And I say, I don't really care. I want.
This is one of my favorite cards in the game right here.
Intoxicating Shot. It's just one of the best cards in the game. It gives you a courage and quick, and what can go wrong?
Like Riptide is such a nice guy. He's gonna be like, you know what? I'm gonna give you stuff because it's a 0-for-4, and that doesn't seem fair. So I'm just gonna be so generous and just give you some bonuses. You want bonuses, right? Like Quicken's good, Courage is good.
And Mark, flexing a little bit, did 2 sync blows that turn to cover up the damage. Both of them signed, it looks from the
Yeah,
artist.
they did both look signed.
Now, it's also interesting to note, I did say, I'd want to take vanilla damage, but Ravenous Rabble coming in does not have the Dreadbore effect, so it's a good opportunity to use those D-Reacts from hand. Now, we're seeing Enlightened Strike +2 coming in from Mark's side.
Yeah. This is one of the perfect attacks I was talking about earlier with deck fatigue. This only costs you 1 card for 7 damage, exactly where you want to be in this fatiguey matchup. It looks like Sophia is currently only blocking you with a Fate. Let's see if we have any sneaky traps in there. A Nurture trap would be insane here. Oh, just double sync. Sync and a Fate, I mean.
Listen, we take those. Sophia is going to sync after seeing the card with Fate, which is pretty cool. Always love to see that.
Super cool interaction of putting the exact card you want on top and deciding if you want to sync or not.
Oh, Tales all this time. We are seeing Remorseless loaded with Dreadbore, so both effects of Dreadbore and Remorseless are active right now. Remorseless saying, hey, no D-Reacts from Arsenal. Dreadbore saying, no D-Reacts from hand. And then we also got a point the tip here, which gave it an aim counter, not really relevant for Remorseless, but with the new Azalea deck coming out, those aim counters are going to be humming.
Yeah, I do appreciate Sophia putting that aim counter on the Remorseless. It doesn't do anything, but I do like representing it just to say, hey, you know what? I worked hard for this aim counter. Let me show it off.
Well, yeah, it's kind of in a way saying, listen, I'm really focused in. I'm locked in right now, and I'm giving you threats you're gonna have to deal with, Uzuri, and I'd love to see some aim counter action. Now, some of it did hit, so Remorseless is active, so they will lose life for every action card they play on their turn.
Luckily for Mark, Uzuri doesn't play many action cards, mainly 1 a turn. So that would likely just be 1 point of damage. And there's Isolate, 3 Dominate. The Dominate, you might go like, it's only 3 damage. Why does it need Dominate? It's very important for Uzuri to sneak out a big attack after with their hero ability. So dominating the attack before you swap it out is important to not let them overblock it.
Oh, wow. We see the Pendulum Trap in response to the activation. So Mark should be milling 2 cards and taking a life. Milling 4 cards, 2 Pendulum Traps on a turn where Uzuri was activated. Holy smokes.
Yeah, Dominate doesn't do much when it's from Arsenal and from hand. And milling 4 cards? Oh, that's brutal. I said this was a fatigue match, and Sophia's really sure about fatigue.
I mean, Pendulum Trap is just one of my favorite cards, and it's like, if we're seeing a zoom in on the on the mill there, thank you, Az. We appreciate that. Milling some relevant cards there, including Shakedown, but Pendulum Trap is just such a cool card, and it is blocking out a command and counter.
What punish was real? Oh, great play by Sophia. Because if Sophia would have waited for the Uzuri to resolve, she wouldn't have been able to play this traps from her hand.
Mm-hmm. Which is, I mean, she played it perfectly right there, because that is always the threat of running into Uzuri's, that, Command and Conquer could be the thing that gets flipped there. Now, Sophia unfortunately just had to kind of filter her hand and pass back, but yeah, Riptide doesn't care, because Riptide's going to be doing damage with traps and blocking really efficiently.
Yeah, Mark finally gets to show us what a 5-card hand could do from the Uzuri side. Really looking for some shreds or some of these daggers to hit to get more value off of his on hits. Starting with the Nerve Scrapple again.
Nerve Scalpel being pretty relevant in this matchup, right? It also tells a story, right? If Riptide says, don't worry about it, probably not seeing a lot of traps, but it'd be interesting. Now we're seeing Infect threatening a Blood Rot Pox. one of the best tokens in the game.
Sophia lets it hit, lets the attack reaction resolve, and it's a take cover. So that is currently fully blocked. Sophia gets to reload here.
And it's one less, notably because of the scalpel, but it is going to cover it up, and we'll see what happens.
Is it another Command and Conquer? If it is, it doesn't really matter because there's no arsenal anymore.
It
is a shakedown. This is one of my favorite cards that you can play in Uzuri. And a shred.
Oh, wow.
So this will hit for 6 currently.
Somebody call the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles because you got a little shredder action going on. It is pretty scary, which is a wild thing to see. And Sophia's in the tank saying, you know what, I am going to do something here. And playing Boulder Trap, loading, and then maybe just letting the shakedown hit. So perhaps Sophia saved the thing that she didn't want to lose.
Yeah, and shakedown's always interesting because the Uzuri player has to choose a color and then just hope to hit. So they chose red. There is a red card in there, and the Remembrance was the other card. And you almost never name yellow, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to name yellow because there's such few hits in yellow. Man, getting that Remembrance out of the hand would have been huge.
For all intents and purposes, the life totals here are pretty close. I think we're probably looking more like card in deck, seeing, as how that can affect the way the rest of this game goes. We're seeing Enlightened Strike +2, interestingly enough, not drawing a card.
Yeah, that is interesting. I do think damage is somewhat relevant here.
Mm-hmm.
And Sophia tucking that E-Strike on her turn, or on Mark's turn, I should say, to not let Shakedown take it was a huge, huge play. Absolutely. Otherwise, that E-Strike would have been gone. The hand would have been a Remembrance and a buff, which does nothing. But instead, she got to save that card for 7 damage. I feel like sometimes reload is overlooked, especially at instant speed. People are like, why do you want to reload at instant speed? It doesn't do much. And that's the perfect reason of why you want to reload at instant speed.
Absolutely. Command and Conquer here. Oh, well, kind of getting rewarded for not having an arsenal, although still blocking out the Command and Conquer. Ooh, and Mark gained some life with Sigil of Solace.
Sigil of Solace is one of those cards that is always a good card to play, and you never expect it.
Yeah, you're basically saying if you're running 3 of them, you're like, well, I'm starting at 49, or in the case of like Riptide, it would be 47. But I love Sigil of Solace and Riptide specifically because it loads at least, which is really cool.
Yeah, getting 3 life load value,
straight value.
And normally when you're playing against a hero like Riptide or other Rangers, you bring in a lot of arsenal hate. So if you have a Sigil of Solace in your arsenal and they Command and Conquer you, that's cute. I'll play Sigil, let CNC hit, take 3. Value.
Sophia's just opting to just arsenal and pass here. So we're going to see another high-powered turn from Mark, which is going to start with the Nerve Scalpel, understandably.
Yeah, one thing to note about Assassins is their 5-card hands aren't always completely functional. A lot of times it will just be dagger, big number.
Mm-hmm.
And Riptide's not really that scared of the daggers. And the big numbers are kind of easy to block with all these defense reactions and traps. But Leave No Witnesses is one that you have to cover up.
Yeah, and, interesting enough, well, exactly what I was about to say. There is a trap in Arsenal because there was a Arsenal pass, so you have to assume that Leave No Witness is going to get a little bit punished here. And this is a pretty relevant one because Mark has to pay 1 to even have the ability to still get the banish effect of the on hit in response to this tripwire trap. So he pays the 1, which is forgotten later. So league that means nothing, folks. And
Yeah.
So no damage was no. You still received the damage, actually. So there's a
Because it
note on.
triggered, right?
Yeah, it triggers no matter what.
Because Riptide just says when this triggers, it doesn't matter if the effect of the trigger happens.
Mm-hmm.
So Tripwire says this is offended. The effect of paying one or not triggers take one damage. And then Mark can then choose to pay one for the effect of the on hit.
Yeah, so the crew traps do trigger no matter what, right? So, what's the yellow one called? Pitfall trap.
Yes.
That one does potentially deal 3 damage. Lightning bolt for any of the Magic fans out there.
Really quickly, Sophia's throwing a battering bolt, and this is one of my favorite cards in Ranger that has suddenly got insane with the Mistveil release.
Oh
There's
yeah.
so many cards that everyone's playing nowadays that are non-action cards. There's so many instants being played. There's so many chi cards. There's so many
Reactions.
Ardivores running around.
And the cool thing with Battering Bolt and Dreadbore is you can get stuck with D-Reacts in your hand with the Battering Bolt coming at you. And if you can't cover it up with other things in your hand, you're going to discard those D-Reacts and lose life.
Ultimate punish, but Mark respects it, blocks with a shred and a weakest link.
Is Mark also blocking with some equipment? Yes, he has to because it's coming in for 7 because of the Dreadbore. Now, it would have been really cool to see a Rain Reasers right there. But
all of these arrows hitting the breakpoint because of Dreadbore is such a nice thing to see. Really puts Riptide that extra edge that he needs to get over these breakpoints that defense reactions cannot cover unless you plan to head a full turn.
Dreadbore's just such a sneakily good card. Looking for scrap.
Yeah, looking for scrap. One of my favorite cards in Assassin. It is a 1/4, but if you banish a card with cost 1 power, it gets +1 and go again. And Assassin plays all these really weird stealth 1-attack cards anyways. So it's almost always just a 1/5 go again that banishes something that might be relevant later if you can mess with your banish zone.
But unfortunately,
trap punishes it.
Yeah, I mean, it literally turns on 2/3 of all the traps, right? Looking for scrap because it gets the +1 and gets go again. So we see, whoa, inertia trap and
inertia, the mega punish.
Oh my god! Sophia says, "You know what? Have some tokens. Here's a frailty and an inertia."
I was hyping up this looking for a trap. I think it's a busted card. I think it's really good. But Riptide's saying, you know, that's cute. 1/5, that's above right. How about we don't do that? Let's not have looking for scrap do anything relevant besides reward me.
You love to see this. Now, the inertia is getting a little bit erased here with Codex of Frailty because Mark will be getting a Ponder and then also getting some value off of Sophia not having an arsenal. So Sophia's going to grab Intoxicating Shot, interestingly enough. Maybe it's just, wants it for the late game. This is what I like to see. Mark grabbing.
Or maybe they're going to let Leave No Witnesses hit. It is only for 3 damage. And nope, Heat Seekers will block it, it looks like.
No, that's the one that
discard.
Sophia has to discard.
No, yeah, Sophia said, I don't want this card. I'm just going to let Leave No Witnesses hit.
Interesting.
Get rid of the top card of my deck. Mark will get some tokens for Leave No Witnesses hitting.
Worth noting that if that Intoxicating Shot does come in face down when Codex resolves. So Trench could have gotten rid of it. Keep a card in your deck. Now Command and Conquer coming in. I don't think we've seen Trench activated once.
No, I love Trench as a card. Back before we had Riptide, it was all Lexi's running around. And there's a few lists that were running Trench, and it's such a skill-intensive card to run in a hero like Lexi. So I'm super glad that heroes like Riptide can also take advantage of that resource generation, that deck size mattering, and all that other fun stuff you can do with it.
Mo Bogsley, I'm gonna be straight with you. Mm-hmm. Trench and Riptide are from the same set.
That's insane. That really shows you how much I did not play Outsiders.
because it's literally made for Riptide because it's pirate themed and it fixes his arsenal. Holy smokes.
I don't want to disrespect all of the Riptide enjoyers out there, so I will not say anything more about Trench or Riptide.
Oh man, that was great. Before we had Riptide and Lexi was using Trench, that was an
To
all
be fair,
timer.
when Lexi was meta, Riptide was nowhere to be seen. So I feel like that was a fair statement. I was just saying
uh,
Riptide wasn't relevant yet. You took it out of context.
I was
Let's move
playing.
on
I was playing him. Damn it.
to Mark throwing an E-strike for a go again into a leave no witnesses,
And then
into a black cat whispers.
wow, Mark read the bluff there, saying, you don't have any kind of reaction in hand, so we're gonna be able to punish you. They're gonna get more silver because they banished a fate foreseen.
I didn't see what the other card was, but I did see the fate go. Another leave no witnesses.
Oh man.
And I do think the 4 damage is relevant with Sophia being at 19, but also losing a card off the top each time this hits is also relevant. Mark is attacking 2 different win conditions here, life total and deck size.
Yeah, I mean, like Mark had some. Oh, we're seeing another Command and Conquer. Sophia's saying, whatever. I'm gonna just send Command and Conquer because it's the best card in the game. But Mark does have some, ground to make up after losing 4 cards off those double pendulum traps, which was pretty cool. But it might not matter if Sophia's deck is gonna get completely banished here.
Mark gave 2 cards to CNC, protecting the arsenal. Going back over to Mark's turn. What does he want to do? Pitches are red here for a death touch. The pitch is a death touch for a death touch. 1 card still in hand. Probably just going to get arsenaled.
Yeah, Death Touch still. Well, we're finally seeing the new Horizons come out here, and a take cover.
One thing I want to point out here, if you're Sophia and you see your opponent pitch a death touch to play a death touch and keep another card to arsenal, you have to be really worried about what that other card in Mark's hand is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yes.
death touch is a prime arsenal target, and he chose to pitch it instead.
Now, Mo, what if it's a Gorganian Tome in hand? Can't pitch for anything. You just don't know these things sometimes.
That is fair.
Why wasn't it played before? We don't know. So I do want to point out something cool for the viewers here about Take Cover and Riptide, right? So when you play Take Cover from hand, there is a Riptide trigger, right? And wait, did the Death Touch hit?
Yes, Flick Knives was activated. I was going to let you finish your
yes,
cool trick, though.
Oh, the cool trick. Yeah. So, okay, the Flick Knives was activated. So no more Scalpel, but it is pretty relevant. That just honestly added 3 damage total. And, 4 damage, actually. 1 damage from the knife hitting, and then 1 minus. Yeah, whatever. We'll get there. Take Cover. When you play it from hand, Riptide, you get a Riptide trigger to load into your arsenal. You can hold priority, load whatever you want in. Maybe it's another trap. You can play the trap from arsenal and then let the reload trigger resolve and then throw something else into your arsenal. So you can do some crazy stuff with that. It's not always relevant, but we like to see it. Here comes a Bolton Shot. We haven't seen maybe some Bolton Shots block here.
Bolton Shot is such a good card.
Ooh,
Jedbor making it a 1 for 5 basically into a codex with 2 floating. So you can get Battering Bolt, you can get CNC.
Oh yeah, that's the business right there. This is a tough spot for Mark because as good as Uzuri is, it's just not one of those decks that has that super high single turn damage output that we even see in new sometimes. So 13 is still a bit of a stretch. So you can't really, you got to string together a couple turns to make this work. So Sophia's going to do the Ponder first and then decide if the Blood Rot is going to resolve. It does. Sophia's at 11, a little bit closer to death. But Mark did give up a lot of cards.
Sophia did just buy tempo, right? Mark only had one card in his hand, one card in arsenal, popping those silvers to get the legs back, which is super important in this fatigue matchup. And now you have to really look at deck size at this point. We can see Sophia's deck, it looks like it's 20-ish cards left, but we can't really see Mark's deck. I would have to assume it's around 20-ish cards as well. So both these heroes going into the fatigue game with Sophia at 11 and Mark at 25. I'm super interested to see who can sneak this one out with the deck size being this low.
Absolutely. It's just a battle of codexes. Everybody's saying, you know what? We like books. So that's just what we're seeing. We're seeing codex getting death touch.
So let's see. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 18, 19, 20. I think Sophia has about 27 cards left, if I counter correctly. Mark is counting off camera, so I don't know how many cards Mark has left, but more than half of their decks are gone.
Yeah,
is that a boulder trap being blocked? What does that one do again, Tommy?
Puts a -1 counter on a equipment if the attack was higher than its base, which it was not there. So it's just actually just a 3 block, which, hey, we take those.
3 blocks, still good.
And here we go. Oh, Trench being activated. And Sophia said, I'm just filter my hand.
Paid one for the Dreadbore. Didn't put anything in there, I believe. Activated Trench, put a card on the bottom, Arsenal, and passed. Very clean way to make a pitch stack if you want. A way to get those cards out of your hand. Maybe Remembrance doesn't have the targets she's looking for yet to cast.
You know, it's kind of interesting. I like Remembrance later and later in the game because you have a thinner deck to throw those cards into, so you can kind of get a better feel for what you're going to draw, right? And what you're going to need to draw.
Makes sense. You know more about the game state and what kind of damage or blocks you're looking for. Interesting enough here, Art of Desire Mind coming at Sophia. And you might look at that card and go, well, Riptide doesn't play many blues, so the on it doesn't matter. But then you have to remember, Uzuri is just going to throw like a CNC or Weakest Link or something like there we go. Bonds of Agony. So this card is normally seen as a new card, but Uzuri can play it. Uzuri needs to do 3 attack reactions to give it +3, and then look at their hand and search their deck and graveyard for cards with the same name and banish them all. So Sophia has to cover this up.
Oh, wow. We're seeing the Tripwire Trap out of Arsenal, which should cover it up.
Yeah. See, the 1 damage there still needed. Ignore that little text prompt.
It should all be, it should be, you know.
But that just shows you how good these old traps like Tripwire Trap are. It forces your opponent to pay the 1, and it blocks her 4, and it triggers Riptide. So much value in just 1 card.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the blue one as well, Rock Slide Trap, which, you know, if they don't pay the 1, the attack gets -2. So it's like a blue 0 for 4.
Has an E-Strike for 7, I assume? Yep, E-Strike for 7. Now, Mark, with the 13-point life lead, at some point can just take this vanilla damage, as you would just call it, and keep the 5-card hand if he thinks he can rip all the cards out of Sophia's hand, if he thinks he can maybe put her super low that his dagger could finish the game. He has some wiggle room. Meanwhile, Sophia's playing on these super thin margins at this point, where these 1-card 7s mean a lot.
Absolutely. Now, you know, Mark says, I'm not going to take the vanilla damage here. I'll take a little bit of it. I'm more of a chocolate fan. I'm taking 1, just only blocking 6 on the 7, which is good, I think, for Sophia.
Yeah, I think it's good for Sophia. If she believes she can win the fatigue battle, getting those 2 cards out of her hand. Not great for Sophia if she's a little bit worried about the fatigue plan.
Yeah, not exactly sure how many cards Mark is on.
Pitfall Trap. Now, this one's one of my favorites.
Oh, yeah. It's the lightning bolt.
Yeah, it deals 1 damage for Riptide's ability, and then it forces a resource out of Mark. Otherwise, he's going to take another 2. So this is basically a Blood Rot token right here.
It's essentially a 0 for 3 go again, like Phi or something. What else does 3 damage? There's got to be a wizard card, right?
The snapback, but it's a 1 for 3, so it doesn't really count.
Oh, so true.
Either way here, the 3rd Codex from Mark is coming down. He's going to grab a CNC. Sophia's going to grab a CNC. Both players just like Command and Conquer and Reading, apparently.
Now, let's see. I mean, I guess Sophia had a full grip, so could still block with 2 cards and then send the CNC.
Only 2 cards left, though, correct? Because 1 card got discarded to Codex, and the 1 trap blocked.
Well, the trap was out of Arsenal.
Right, but then the Codex put a new card in there, and she discarded, so that went down to 3 cards.
Yeah. No. So she's only blocked with 3 cards total, so she had 5 cards available. So she had 1 card.
That's how math works. That is correct.
Yes. We got there. League means nothing anyway.
The trench confused me a little bit with the cards available.
Trench is a card that some say was around a long time before Riptide was around.
Don't know who that guy is, but he sounds super smart.
Super smart.
Sophia just passing her turn.
Yep, just arsenaling and passing. We're seeing Spider's Bite here. And
yeah, this is the slow burn.
Now, interesting enough, when that Frailty Trap got banished early in the game, this would have probably come up already. If she had just trenched it away, we could have seen, some more chip damage here and stuff to mitigate the difficult decisions here at the end of like such a long, grindy game. Now we're seeing Prismatic Leyline. Shout out to Elaine, who did an amazing cosplay for the reveal of this card. We're seeing Isolate for 4? Ooh.
Isolate for 4. Which, again, it's a 4 dominate. Uzuri could always swap it out for something else. Or it could be just a Nick. This is a 0 for 9 dominate. And Sophia is at 9.
Something's got to give here. Something's got to give.
How many traps can Sophia play on this?
I have to assume at least 1 is in Arsenal. Well, it's a sync. That's a good one. All
right, maybe digging for another defense reaction or trap here. She will then play one from hand.
Oh, it is the Spike Pit Trap, which does trigger. So Mark is going to mill 1 and then lose a life for each card with that name in the graveyard.
If this hits something like Shred, it's going to mill most of his deck.
Well, just deal a lot of damage. It only mills 1 no matter what.
Right.
Just a Nick was put into the graveyard. So that might only be a couple. Mark takes 3 here when it should be 2, question mark, as the current Just a Nick hasn't been put in the graveyard yet. I believe that is correct. But this league does mean nothing. Sometimes.
Yeah, was a judge we need a judge, right? Endless Arrows gets banished off of Just a Nick. So Sophia down to 7. Mark down to 16, though. And Sophia keeping 3 cards in hand.
Very impressive. Oh,
one of my favorite cards, Premeditate. Loads into an E-Strike. Oh, is this for 10?
Gotta be for 10. This is so
E-Strike
good.
For 10. I'd hit your Ponder. And if you're Mark, you don't want to take the 10 damage, but you also can't cover this up.
Holy smokes.
Could give 3 cards in Tunic. You could give 3 cards. Oh, wait. Is that a -1 counter on the Tunic? What's that black marker?
It might be from from a boulder trap earlier in the game that we didn't pay attention to, or it's just hanging out there. Unless, oh wait, those might be just like little marble things.
Oh, those resource counters. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Mark says, you know what? I'll block 3. I'll go to 9. You can have the ponder.
And once you get into single digits against Riptide, you have to worry a little bit, right? Because any trap that triggers will deal 1 damage. So you're kind of like playing with destiny at this point. The lower you get, the happier Riptide's smile normally gets. Last time I hit 8 at Nationals, Riptide had a huge grin on their face. So like he's right where I want him.
Well, now the interesting thing is there are probably 2 more Sigil of Solaces in Mark's deck. I think we only saw him play 1.
That is true. He could be at a relative 15. But Sophia's still blocking there, not letting any of these on hits attack. Granted, Bounds of Agony gets +3 from its own ability. There could be some shreds in here. There could be some buffs in here. There could be just the nick. It could be anything on this Bounds of Agony, which is what makes this card so terrifying.
Yeah,
your opponent never knows how to block it.
It's notably a lot harder to do the Bonds of Agony thing consistently in Uzuri than like new, I believe. But it could still happen. We saw it happen earlier.
But even without doing the Bonds of Agony thing there, Mark still traded 1 card for 2 cards. So that always feels good when it's this late into the game.
We take those.
Is Mark out of deck?
Holy smokes. That can't be.
Did he just draw the rest of his deck?
And Riptide looking like Riptide has
10 cards left, I have to guess.
All the cards in the world. And here we go. Codex of Frailty.
I do like these players. They keep getting the negative tokens for themselves.
Absolutely. Well, they both play Codex. It's like, well, I got this Frailty. Don't worry. This is interesting. If that is the end of Uzuri's deck, I don't see a way out of this. Oh, and one of my favorite cards to play in Riptide for situations exactly like this is Virulent Touch. Post Malone gives them a Blood Rot Pox if they block with a action. No,
Such
play
a
a card from
funny
hand.
right?
That's all it cares about.
I've loved this art. I've loved this card since it's been printed, and I'm so glad Riptide can play it. A 0-for-4 that punishes blocking is hilarious.
Oh my god! And honestly, that's what I look like in the morning when I look in the mirror.
It is true, folks. I have seen it.
Let's go see a little bit more in Tampa Bay. Rosetta.
Tampa. Now, can Mark close out 6 points of life with only 1 dagger? He's attacking that with an infect.
Yeah, I mean,
I believe there's a CNC left in deck, if I remember right. And maybe a weakest link. I think those are the 2 big cards left. Maybe a shakedown as well.
Yeah, so Uzuri is going to be activated here. And it's a weakest link. I mean,
how much does Riptide care about weakest link?
Not at all, to be honest. Except for, I guess, also, I guess Remembrance is in the decks, but you can always just play that in instant speed.
Yep,
So
Sophia full blocks this.
Covers it up.
Mark is down to 3 cards in hand, 1 in arsenal.
Can Sophia send some damage here to force some cards to be taken?
Activating this trench, I have to assume yes. Loading in a battering bolt for 6. The
7 with the Dreadbore.
7, yeah, it's 7.
Oh my lord! I mean, the writing's on the wall, folks.
Yeah, you can't even give your armor to live another turn. You would still just die. Mark is in the tank, trying to see what he can do to get out of this. But with that quiver still on Sophia's side, with the 2 to 3 remembrances still in the deck, it's a big uphill battle.
Yeah. So it's gonna take the those two surgical extractions in
Yeah,
hand.
which we did see a surgical cast all game, have we?
Yeah, so maybe there's another one in Arsenal. Unless there was one blocked.
Oh, no, surgical is pitched. Spider's bite 4-1. Sophia just has to realize she just has to block at this point.
I mean, if you have 2 traps that trigger on this spider's bite, you can win.
Is there 2 traps that would trigger off the spider bite? Oh, with the trench blocking it?
Trench
To buff
blocking it. Tar pit trap. Buzzsaw trap. Ping ping. Is that going to do it? Unless there's a sigil in
Is there
Arsenal.
a sigil in Arsenal to buy a turn?
Oh,
No, there is not.
man.
Wow, Sophia takes it.
What a stunner.
By both players.
Yeah. This was a fun game to watch. You know, I always love to see a Riptide take a win there. And it's truly incredible how much Riptide can fatigue decks, right? I think that was the biggest shocker for a lot of people when Riptide started actually fatiguing people. I mean, not, I don't want to call out Dig and White, but that's gonna do it for this episode. It's a black screen right now, but listen,
hopefully our voices are still here and you guys can still hear our beautiful voices.
I think they can now. Thank you so much for watching. I am Tommy Fresh. I am from Fresh and Buds. I have a channel. You can go check it out. Mo Bogsley, where people find you?
I am Mo Bogsley from Mo Bogsley. Member of Team of Ascent. Feel free to follow me on Twitter at Mo Bogsley. And this was a ton of fun. I love commentating on heroes that I don't know much about because I feel like I can learn so much.
Absolutely. And he was Mo Bogsley was on an episode of Fresh and Buds last week. It was amazing. Go check that out. We love you, and goodbye.